He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. Let me say in advance, Happy Easter. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Well, reportedly on the Drudge Report, citing Breitbart, the Obama daughters went to the Bahamas, and now they're on the ski slopes, Sun Valley, Idaho. The local television station that reported that has pulled the story at the request of the White House. Joe Biden, he flew off to South Carolina for a golfing long weekend. That's his third vacation. I just thought you'd all want to know. But what I want to start with today is almost, it comes up from time to time, but it's really almost unimaginable. It's almost unimaginable. There was a hearing in Florida. Involving the Florida Alliance of Planned Parenthood affiliates. That is, Planned Parenthood groups in Florida, which, by the way, are subsidized by the taxpayer. A lot of money from we the people goes into Planned Parenthood. And you'll hear them talk about, well, they give advice on this, that, and the other. But the primary thing Planned Parenthood does is promote and defend abortion. Now, that's abortion. What happens if the baby is born? What do they do with the baby then? Who decides what happens to the baby? I mean, to me, it's a life, whether it's inside the mother or outside the mother. But for the liberal, who's decided that it has to be born, the baby has to be born for it to actually be a baby, which is so preposterous. But okay, what happens then? Well, we know Obama's position. We'll get to that in a moment. But I want you to hear what this top lobbyist for Planned Parenthood had to say. She represents Planned Parenthood at this Florida House Committee hearing on this specific issue. Oh, Mark, let's talk about the finance. Folks, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It starts with life. Nothing else is possible without life. Hat tip to the Weekly Standard. First you're going to hear a representative. Then you're going to hear a lady by the name of Snow. Then another representative, then a lady by the name of Snow, and so forth. The lady by the name of Snow is the lobbyist for the Florida Alliance of Planned Parenthood affiliates. I want you to listen to this. Cut one, go.
It's just really hard for me to even ask you this question because I'm almost in disbelief. If a baby is born on a table as a result of a botched abortion, what would Planned Parenthood want to have happen to that child that's struggling for life? You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, we believe that any decision that's made should be left up to the woman, her family, and the physician.
What happens in a situation where a baby is alive, breathing on a table, moving? What do your physicians do at that point?
You're recognized.
I do not have that information. I am not a physician. I'm not an abortion provider. So I do not have that information.
I I understand that you're not a physician, but you do represent
Yes.
Physicians who do perform this activity. And can you tell me what happens when a baby is alive on the table at that point? What do they do with the baby that is struggling to live?
You're recognized.
I don't know, and as it's been referenced earlier, we don't know even how prevalent this situation is.
I don't know how else I can get an answer, Mr. Chairman.
Can you believe this? We don't know how prevalent this situation is. What kind of a society have we become where we, the people, fund organizations like this, lobbyists like this? It should be that we do everything humanly possible to protect our babies. Our babies. I'm so sick and tired of the left in this country going on and on. Every time they want to rip us off and spend more money and expand the size of government and fund the National Education Association, every other damn left-wing group, they talk about the children. They talk about our babies. Meanwhile, they're breaking their backs, the next generation and the generation after that, with what they're doing on the debt. And here, the question is, if the baby is delivered and on the table and moving around, what is the position of Planned Parenthood in terms of that baby? What do you do with the baby? I don't know, she says. I'm not a physician. Are you a human being, lady? I don't know. I'm not an abortion provider, so I don't have that information. You don't have what information? You don't know what you do with a baby that's delivered, that's living and breathing? This is a hard question. Is this a hard question like drones flying around in the sky and people sitting in a cafe? Is it a hard question like that? And then when conservatives want answers and keep pressing and we finally get an answer, there's something wrong with us? Is that the kind of question this is? This requires a full-scale congressional investigation. I would like to know, I suspect many of you would like to know on this Easter weekend, on this Passover week, how many babies that are delivered are killed, if any. This lobbyist found this question perplexing, and she couldn't answer it. And she was asked. She couldn't answer it. But there's more, Mr. Producer. Cut 2. Go.
You stated that that a baby born on a table as a result of a botched abortion, that decision should be left to the doctor and the family. Is that what you're saying?
It should. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That decision should be between the patient and the healthcare provider.
Stop. No, it's not between the patient and the healthcare provider. It's murder. If that, in fact, is what happens, what do you mean it's left between the patient and the healthcare provider? Go ahead.
I think that at that point, the patient would be the child struggling on a table. Wouldn't you agree?
That's a very good question. I really don't know how to answer that. I think, I would be glad to have some more, conversations with you about this.
So we don't know. We don't know what the answer is. She wants to have more conversations, even though she's not a doctor or an abortion provider. So what good is having conversations with her? We're spending hundreds of millions of dollars, and over a course of several years, billions of dollars subsidizing this organization, and their chief lobbyist testifying for the Florida Alliance of Planned Parenthood affiliates can't state what happens to a baby after it's born, what they do or don't do for it. It's between a patient and the physician? No, it's not. No, it's not. There's a little bit more. Cut 3, go.
What
objection could you possibly have to obligate a doctor to transport a child born alive to a hospital, where it seems to me they would be most likely to be able to survive?
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What about this, and I'm just speaking out loud here, what about those situations where it's in a rural healthcare setting, the hospital is 45 minutes, an hour away, that's the closest trauma center or emergency room. There's just some logistical issues involved that we've got some concerns about.
Mr. Producer, is this woman of flesh and blood? You have some logistical problems? What kind of an answer is this? Ladies and gentlemen, just put this in your mind's eye. A beautiful little baby is delivered. It's alive. It's put on a table. It needs help. The abortion was botched. What do you do with the baby? The official answer of the lobbyists representing the Florida Alliance of Planned Parenthood affiliates is it's between the patient and the doctor. So if the patient and the doctor, or she calls it the patient and the provider, the abortionist, if they decide to take the baby and fling it out the window, is that okay? If they both made that decision? If they decided to take the baby and dunk it in a bathtub until it died, is that okay? Because they made the decision? If they decided not to call an ambulance because it might the emergency room might be 45 minutes away, so the baby is on the table just flopping around like a flounder, is that okay? Is this what we've become? Is this where we're going? But it's a choice, Mark. No, it's not a choice. It's not a choice. You liberals, you lecture us condescendingly, arrogantly, delusionally, quite frankly, that if our taxes don't go up, if we don't pay for this institution or this constituent group, if we don't redistribute wealth, that the federal government doesn't get bigger and bigger, that our children, our grandchildren are going to suffer. And here we have a baby, an example, a baby truly suffering, struggling for life, a baby that was delivered. And one of your favorite organizations, Planned Parenthood, acts like it's a goldfish. We don't treat animals this way, nor should we. No respect for human life, no regard for human life. All this talk about equality, all this talk about spending money, all this talk about redistributing wealth. And look at this. I don't care if you're religious or not. This is grotesque. This is inhumanity. This is what we pay for. We need some answers. Does this situation occur? And if it occurs, how often does it occur? Because, frankly, it's flat-out murder. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Other radio hosts don't want to get into this stuff. I discuss whatever I think needs to be discussed. Seems to me human life is a priority. There's a man on trial, you folks, WWIQ country, and others, in Philadelphia and so forth. You know there's a man on trial. His name is Dr. Kermit Gosnell. This man made a fortune, millions of dollars over 3 decades, by performing abortions, in particular late-term abortions. And he's been charged with multiple counts of murder, and he's on trial. And he catered to minorities and immigrants and poor women. 7 babies it is alleged, were born alive and then killed with scissors. Prosecutors charged. He would allegedly induce labor, force the live birth of viable babies in the 6th, 7th, 8th month of pregnancy, and then he would kill the babies by cutting into the back of the neck with scissors and severing their spinal cord. Do you think that hurt them? You think that was painful? You know what, folks? I sit here, I think about this. We have abortion clinics all over this country. Are they even regulated? Planned Parenthood. Do we really know what this group is doing day to day? We know what their PR operation says, that they're there to protect women and women's health, but they're really there to promote abortion. And so the question is, what are we paying for here, ladies and gentlemen? We're killing our own children. These aren't even close calls, quote unquote. There were bags and bottles holding aborted fetuses scattered throughout the building, the charging paper said. There were jars lining shelves with severed feet that he kept for no medical purpose. This is like Nazi Germany. In testimony a few days ago, Adrian Moten, who used to work for Gosnell at the Women's Medical Society in West Philadelphia, said she recalled one baby boy A, who was aborted in July 2008. Baby A was so large, the good doctor took a photo of the child with her cell phone. She took a photo of the child with her cell phone before Gosnell took the baby out of the room. She said, I just saw a big baby boy. He had that color that a baby has. She said in the courtroom, I just felt he had a chance. He could have been born any day. What did he do to that baby? Because it never came back alive. Did he cut its throat? Did he snip its spinal cord? What did he do to that baby? Is this not a national news story? Why isn't this all over television? All over news reports today? Why isn't it? I'll be right back.
Mark Levin, America's think tank. And you can call him at 877-381-3811.
All week, we've been lectured to about fairness and equality. All week. All week. Mr. President, do you have any idea what's going on in these abortion clinics? Do you care? Is your administration going to find out what's going on in these abortion clinics? This man butchered these babies. He butchered them. And he had a fun time doing it. One of his co-workers testified to the grand jury, quote, this doctor said, this baby's big enough to walk around with me or walk me to the bus stop, before it was killed. What's going on in these places, ladies and gentlemen? We have inspectors for everything. We have this administration making sure that your children eat asparagus, regulating vending machines, regulating what can be eaten at football games. This administration is everywhere, tinkering, tampering, banning, mandating. Is this administration going to keep pretending that nothing's going on in these clinics? Or is it just a choice? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not particularly religious. I don't go to synagogue every week. Can't find too many Reform rabbis who are conservative. And I don't want to be lectured about politics. Not in Temple. Do you have to be, quote unquote, religious to find this nauseating? Immoral? Not too religious, I mean, in terms of every week going through the rituals and so forth. But I'm a man of faith who believes strongly in God. But I would ask those who aren't men and women of faith, who may not even believe in God, do you believe in humanity? Do you believe in humanity? I'm not here to lecture about morality, but ladies and gentlemen, we get it in every direction. That if we don't pay more taxes for this program, if we don't pay more taxes for that program, that if we're trying to save the nation from fiscal destruction and this, that, and the other, well, who's going to get hurt? The children and the babies and the sick and the ill. Meanwhile, we have these clinics all over the country. I don't even know how many. How are they regulated? Who's looking into this? How did this animal, this Mengele, how did he get away with this for 30 years? 30 years. 30 years. Butchering people. In the heart of Philadelphia. And I cannot believe he's the only one. And I don't believe he's the only one. And you heard the audio clip at the beginning of the program. The woman testifying on behalf of Florida Alliance of Planned Parenthood affiliates. You'd think she's some accountant talking about some aspect of the tax code. The First Lady runs all over the country, patting herself on the back, fighting obesity, you see. We're going to mandate the school lunches and the vending machines and the after-school activities, who can eat what, how much, when, how. For the children, of course. Is she going to say one damn thing about this for the children? Not one. And her husband? Well, what's her husband think about these births that aren't supposed to occur, I suppose? What does her husband think about those? Well, when he was a state senator representing one of the poorest parts of Chicago in the Illinois State Senate, when the issue came up, what did this man do? This man who surrounds himself with victims. What did the man do? Well, I'll tell you what he did. I'll let him tell you what he thought. This is 11 short years ago. Cut 4, go.
But I just want to be clear, because I think this was the source of the objections of the medical society. As I understand it, this puts the burden on the attending physician, who has determined, since they were performing this procedure, that in fact this is a non-viable fetus, that if that fetus or child, however way you want to describe it, is now outside the mother's womb, and the doctor continues to think that it's non-viable.
You know what, I've got to stop you there. If the fetus or child is outside the mother's womb, can't we at least all agree that outside the mother's womb, it's a baby? We can't even agree to that, because the ideological commitment to abortion of any kind, of any type, of any time is so fanatical that we can't even admit that after delivery it's a baby? Oh, good God, help this country. I tell you. Roll it back to the beginning, Mr. Producer. Cut 4, go.
but I just want to be clear because I think this was the source of the objections of the medical society. As I understand it, this puts the burden on the attending physician, who has determined, since they were performing this procedure, that in fact this is a non-viable fetus, that if that fetus or child, however way you want to describe it, is now outside the mother's womb, and the doctor continues to think that it's non-viable, but there's, let's say, movement or some indication that in fact they're not just coming out limp and dead, that in fact they would then have to call a second physician to monitor and check off and make sure that this is not a live child that could be saved. Is that correct?
Is that correct? Do you even know what the hell you're saying? Do you even know what the hell you sound like? But don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, everybody will be covered by Obamacare. Don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, that Politburo they've set up with 15 bureaucrats appointed by the president to make decisions about Medicare, don't worry. It's not a death panel. Come on. No, don't worry. You have nothing to fear. You have nothing to fear at all. See, the liberals stand for the babies. The liberals stand for the little people, the children. And we know that because they endlessly want to spend money. And that's how they, from an institutional and policy point of view, I'm not talking about in their personal lives, but from an institutional and policy point of view, that's how they demonstrate their humanity. More money for the teachers' unions, more money for school buildings, more money for government running this program and that program, and of course more money for Planned Parenthood. Is there a liberal out there who wants to see Planned Parenthood defunded? If there is, you're in a minority of 1, 2, 3%, I bet. Is there a liberal out there who really wants to know what's going on in these abortion clinics across the country? Well, if they are, I'm not hearing from them. Is anybody hearing from them? And if the justices on the Supreme Court are as wise and prudent and Solomon-like as we're supposed to believe, then why did they do this? They couldn't even leave it to the states. They interfered. They rewrote the Constitution in order to advance this. This is called a privacy right. This is called a choice. I want to assure you the United States Constitution does not in any respect or any way justify this kind of treatment of our fellow human beings, of our offspring, of our babies. This is what happens when a handful of people make decisions for all of society. When they get it wrong, they really get it wrong. You see, if some states get it wrong, at least all the states didn't get it wrong. But if the Supreme Court gets it wrong, then the whole country gets it wrong. I want to know what President Obama is going to do about this Planned Parenthood testimony. I want to know what his administration is going to do to assure all of us that these kind of torture techniques, this kind of butchery that reminds me of Nazi Germany, I want our president to assure all of us that we're not subsidizing this. Is he going to pay 1 second attention to this? No, he's not. But don't worry, your kids won't be able to eat M&Ms at school. Don't worry about that. They're the lucky ones.
Mark Levin.
Folks used to talk about back alley abortions. Now we have storefront abortions. We have all this kind of butchery, and now we don't talk about it at all. I dare say there's not another radio host in America who's brought this up today. That doesn't make me special. I just am saying that everything but this is discussed. Oh, we don't want to offend the audience, Nobody wants to hear what? This is life and death stuff. I'll tell you what amazes me. You heard that testimony. I'm not going to play it again. You can go back and listen after the program if you want to. The program will be online for 2 years. Played that testimony of that lady, cold-hearted, cold-blooded, when she was asked directly about botched abortions, what happens if the baby's delivered, and she wouldn't answer what happens to the baby. Well, we know this happens. What happens to the baby? With our tax dollars, what happens to the baby? We want to know, and we want to know how many of them there are. And we want to know if people are prosecuted for murder. Yes, I want to know. And other than the Weekly Standard, PJ Media, The Right Scoop, and a handful of other websites, this hasn't been in any of the mainstream media. Not nationally. Meanwhile, Todd Aiken's comment, which wasn't supported, as my friend David Steinberg writes at PJ Media, wasn't supported by anyone, by any party, by any platform. Virtually no one alive had ever expressed it. He apologized for it, and he didn't lay a finger on anybody. He didn't hurt anybody. He didn't touch anybody. He committed no crime. He committed no act. And you would have thought he was Mengele. But I suspect there are Mengeles around this country who are doing what this sick bastard in Philadelphia did, with the feet in the jars and taking little boys that are 7.5 months, taking them into the other room where they never come out. I suspect crap like this is going on all over the country, but we don't know because they won't look. And you're paying for it. So Todd Aiken, ask Karl Rove. Todd Aiken committed the crime of the world, the crime of the century, by misspeaking, by saying something stupid. But he never laid a finger on anybody. Meanwhile, so little attention is paid to those who do, because it's a choice, because it's politics, because it's an ideology. This lady in Florida, she's not the first to equivocate on murder, as Steinberg writes. She is an ally in a high place. She belongs to a billion-dollar organization that has equivocated on legitimate life, quote unquote, frequently and publicly. Anybody give a damn? I mean, other than us. I don't think so. But don't worry, your kids won't be able to buy Hershey bars and vending machines at school. So everything's fine now. Our conscience is clear.